Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz. Welcome to Communications from Home, my weekly evening show, right here at Star Nations Organization's main fan page. Tonight is Tuesday, and it's May 7th. May 7th. Um, I have to smile here. My screensaver on my laptop rotates and changes in color, and the color that it has up right now matches my shirt. It kind of took my attention away for a moment there. So welcome to the show, to the live stream show. It's good to have you here. I'm so glad that you're here with me and to be a part of the conversation about spiritual teachers and spiritual mentors and what that all means for us or to us, right? So before we get rolling too far down the road with this topic, what I'd like to do is share the live stream on my news feed, and I invite you to also share the show as well, if you wouldn't mind doing that with us, for us. And I say this almost every day on my daily live stream, is that it's kind of like doing spiritual civic duty. Whenever we find a video, a live stream, a post on social media, especially Facebook, is that we actually share it, like it and share it, so that it reaches other people, right? Because you know how it is on Facebook. I mean, there's so much information that comes across, and it's really easy for a post to be buried within seconds or minutes of getting it posted. So sometimes it's kind of hard for people to find things. And so it's just helpful. It's helpful if you run across something that you really enjoy or that you think is helpful to you, that it will probably be helpful to someone else. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing our live stream, and I'm sharing it over to my news feed so that my friends know I'm live streaming. And just to differentiate it, I'm telling them it's my weekly show rather than my daily show. And then please join us. There we go. There. That's good. Yeah. So I got to charge my phone. I'm like running on fumes here. There. All right. So tonight's show is all about spiritual teachers and spiritual mentors. And how did this topic even come about? Well, actually, I think it came out of one of my live stream shows, but also from our magazine, Star Nations Magazine, which we'll be publishing on Friday. And one of our topics is spiritual teacher. And I had decided that's what I wanted to write my editorial about. And as I was writing my editorial and looking for and doing research on something to go along with it, like a video or an audio or something like that, to give you guys a little bit more information about spiritual teachers and actually the selection of one, right? There's not that many out there that are really helpful. There's a couple. I found a couple. But I thought, what a good way to maybe bring this topic, the subject, to our community, and to be able to talk about it and share about it, and see what we can come up with for ourselves, right? And so that's what this show is all about this evening. So I'm going to take a look in the chat room to see who's all here. So here's Julie Shumway Hills here. Hello, Julie. Thank you for being with us tonight, Julie. I know that that you have to get up really early in the morning, so I appreciate you being here with us. And Pat's here too. Hello, Pat. Good to have you here. And Lee Ray. Hello, Lee Ray from Michigan. Good to have you here. And Julie Hedges is here too. Hello, Julie. Julie is one of our live stream show hosts, and she's also a contributing writer for Star Nations Magazine. And it's good to have you here, Julie. In fact, Julie, the name of her show is The Tarot Journey. It's the third Monday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. But she's also a contributing writer for our magazine, Star Nations Magazine. And she also wrote a featured article this month about the moon. And I can't wait for you guys to read that one. A lot of good information in there, let me tell you. So, spiritual teacher. I wanted to show you something here, a picture. When I was looking for images for the promotion for the show, right? And I was really being picky, and I was asking my spiritual team, it's like show me the right picture, the right image for this. And I kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and nothing was coming up, and I'd look at something, I think, yeah, maybe that, and no, that doesn't quite feel right. And as soon as I hit this one, it was like I knew. I could feel it. This was the picture that we needed to use. Why? I guess, when we think about a spiritual teacher, sometimes we think of an elder, right? Somebody who has experience, somebody who has some wisdom under their belt, right? Yeah, and then when I was looking at her face, I was looking at, she's kind of got a little bit of a smile going on there, and her eyes, they're twinkly, right? There's a kindness I see there that I feel in this image's face, and I thought, if we would just go on our intuition, right, and our feelings, that maybe that's how part of the way that we select our spiritual teachers, right? Because who knows? Maybe we'd study with somebody like her, right? Yeah. And I like the fact that part of her face is in the light and part is in the shadow. We talked about this on my daily show today about the opposites. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything negative. It just means that we live here on Earth, and it's a planet of polarity. It's a planet of duality, right? And so to select a teacher that is aware of their shadow self, right? Because we all have one. And to be able to show it, to say, I know this is my shadow self, and I learn from it every day. I learn from it every month, right? And so to be able to heal aspects of our shadow self, that's why it's shown to us. So that's one of the reasons why I use this particular image. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. So, hey, Anne's here too. Hello, Anne. Good to have you here. Good to have you here in the house. And Pat says, I'm a Michiganer too. Yeah, there's a few Michigan people in the house tonight. Indiana and Wisconsin, and yeah, we're covering the upper Midwest. That's for sure. Oh, and Iowa. I got to look in my phone here. Yep, and yep, Michigan. Yeah. Mimi, where are you from? Just the state. You don't have to tell us the city name, just the state. Because I see one of my sisters is in the house too, Christine, and she is in Iowa. So we got the upper Midwest covered. It's kind of nice, isn't it? Michigan is the coolest state. Well, yes, it's one of the coolest. That's for sure. That's for sure. In Indiana, all right, we got Indiana covered too with you and Julie Hedges. Indiana. Yay. Yeah, so we got the upper Midwest covered. A good representation, right? Okay, so here's a question for you all, okay? The first question is, do you have a spiritual teacher that's in a physical body, okay? A human two-legged spiritual teacher. Do you have someone that goes by that title for you? It's a question. And I'll give you a second to answer here because it takes we got a little bit of a time delay. Oh, you guys, they're all talking about where they're at in Indiana or Michigan. Okay. All right. So the question is that do you have a human, a two-legged spiritual teacher identified? Julie is saying no. Okay. Lee Ray is saying no. Rob is saying yes. And Mimi is saying sort of. Okay. Well, it's kind of nice that we have the continuum here, right? We have everybody that doesn't have one, that somebody has one, and then the people in between. That's good. Because that means that we can take a look at this topic from those different perspectives, right? Which is a good thing. Such a sweetheart, Christine. She goes, yes, 5 of them. She's referring to us, her sisters. Oh my gosh. And Anne is saying yes, she has a spiritual teacher. Good. And so does Pat. Excellent. And Julie's saying, good question. I've recently had to let one go and I'm open for another. Oh, that's good. We're going to talk about that too. Rob is saying, would a one-legged rabbi count? Of course. Of course they would. As long as they're a spiritual teacher. And, a spiritual teacher isn't necessarily someone who comes from a religious faith, right? I mean, they can, most certainly, but it's not a prerequisite for a spiritual teacher to be of a specific religious faith. Right. Yeah. So, in my editorial, I talked about my very, very first non-family spiritual teacher, right? Because really, my very first spiritual teacher would have been my mom, and still is, and the second one would have been my grandfather, my Misho, right? And when my Misho walked on, and of course, I was in grief. That was my grandfather, right? He loved me, still loves me. But there was also an element there of losing my spiritual teacher in the physical world. Yeah. And he has taught me a lot too from spirit. But yeah, and so when I selected my very first non-family spiritual teacher, I have to tell you, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I mean, I knew that I wanted to study feng shui, and I knew I wanted to study space clearing in a formal way, right? Because I have informal training around that. And so picking my very first non-family spiritual teacher really came through reading one of her books. And then one day I read that book like 3 times in the span of 6 months. And we were living down in Oklahoma at the time, Paul and I. He was going through his officer advanced course, I believe. And I had finished reading it for the 3rd time, and I just felt this pull, this really strong desire to study with her. Okay, I didn't know her at all. Never even heard of her before. And yeah, and so back in the day, right? No website. It was a telephone number in the back of the book. And I called that number, but all right, here I am pacing around in our townhouse, and do I, don't I? And I did some muscle testing, and some kinesiology. And I got a yes. I actually got a very strong yes. And so before I could lose my courage, because it was a mixture of anxiousness and excitement. And there was also a little dread in there too. um, and so before I could lose my courage, I dialed. And I was shocked, speechless, shocked that the teacher, her name is Denise Lynn. When Denise picked up the phone and said, "Hello, this is Denise Lynn. How can I help you?" I was shocked. I was not expecting to speak to her directly. I was expecting to go through maybe like an assistant or an answering service or something like that, right? No, she picked up the phone. It was like, yeah, you sure can. It's like, I just finished reading your book for the third time and I'm kind of interested in your classes, And so, oh, well, that's nice. And so she starts telling me about the classes and I asked how much are they? And they were expensive, like $1,000. And it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for something like that? So anyway, she had a class coming up. This would have been in the summer. I think it was like the first part of August. And Paul and I were moving back to Wisconsin at the end of July. And so I knew that I couldn't do all the packing and unpacking and then catch a flight to California within days of each other. Knew that wasn't going to happen. And so I asked her to please send me the registration form anyway, and I would fill it all out because I'd be interested in the following class, which would have been in, that was in 2000. I think that was in 2001 or something like that. All right. So, wait a minute. The class was full. The one that was starting in August, it was full. And she says, and she tells me that. So a week later, I get a telephone call back from her. It's like I look at my caller ID and it says Denise Lynn Incorporated. And I'm going, what? And she says they had a cancellation. Would I be interested? Yes, I'm interested, but I can't. And I explained to her why. So anyway, I registered for the 2001 course. I had no idea how I was going to pay for this. None. Well, lo and behold, my nation, the Potawatomi Nation, Prairie Band, our casino, paid out its very first dividend in 2001. And so I had more than half of what I needed to go. What I needed was a little bit more to finish the registration and for the hotel stays and transportation, flight. And so, it was holy smokes. And so that's, and picking my first teacher, I have to admit, I was following my pure intuition, instinct. I didn't do a whole lot of vetting or anything like that. Nothing. And it all worked out. I mean, I learned a lot from her. She opened a lot of doors for me. Some of them I wish they wouldn't have, but yeah. All right. I'm back in the chat. I want to see what everybody's talking about. Julie's saying, but I haven't recently had beautiful experiences with two teachers, an artist teacher and a metaphysical healer, hoping to deepen my practices with them. Ah, okay. That's a good one, really. I want to come back to that in just a second. Julie's saying, yes, there is real grief when a teacher leaves or you leave. There's a void on many levels. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. And when my Misho walked on, it was on many levels because he was also my Misho. He was my grandfather. But, I felt like he bailed on me. It felt like, we started this and now you're gone. Now what am I supposed to do? It's not like I can call him and say, like if we had a falling out or something, and to have a conversation about it and try to work it out. right? There wasn't anything. There wasn't. There was a lot of healing around it that had to happen, but yeah. Lee Ray is saying, I have a Reiki teacher that I stay in touch with. Does that count? Yes, it does. Yes, it does count. Because a spiritual teacher, to me, a spiritual teacher, it's not so much the word. Well, the words count. Yes, they do. The information counts. But I think a spiritual teacher helps us to stretch, sometimes uncomfortable stretch, out of our comfort zone, stretch into who we really are, right? And so helping us to maybe see aspects of ourselves that we either didn't want to look at or didn't acknowledge, right? So a spiritual teacher to me helps us with our soul growth. Our soul growth. At least that's my definition. And we should probably talk about that. How do you define a spiritual teacher, right? And Julie said, I would say absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Rob says, I've had teachers who basically opened doors within, but didn't like the results, so left me for dead. Oh, well, that's too bad. Or is that lyrics? I can never tell with you, Rob. Okay, so when we're looking for a teacher, when we're first searching, right? That's why I told you the story about my very first one, is because honestly, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I literally followed my intuition. Does it feel good? God, I'm scared, but does it feel good? Do I feel excited about it? Yes, I do. Okay, well, I'll take another step. And then further down the line, as I started to grow and to understand myself a heck of a lot better, yeah, getting a little bit more savvy about asking certain questions of teachers, like, how did you come to this? How did you know that this was your path? Who did you study with and why? Right? And basically for me, rule of thumb is walking their talk. Are they integrous? Right? Yeah. Completely stay away from the ones this is just me, you guys, okay? Is when they say, trust me. It's like, okay, I'd rather trust myself first, because that's what we're learning how to do, right? Is trust our intuition, to trust that inner voice, right? And so when somebody tells me to trust them, it's like, I would like to, but can you show me or tell me why or how I should do that? Because sometimes teachers, they get kind of the ones who get upset with you because you're asking them personal questions or questioning them. And if they get angry with you, to me, that's a huge red flag. Huge. To be able to ask them a question and have them be angry with you, then why are they angry? Right? So there's telling things. And you don't get there until you actually sit down to get to know them a little bit, to ask them the questions, right? And what was that? What did Julie? I want to go back to what Julie said earlier. Oh, here it is. She says, recently had beautiful experiences with two teachers, an artist teacher and a metaphysical teacher, hoping to deepen my practices with them. That's good. Yeah. And, I think the key word here is deepening my practices, right? Because at some point, especially when it's a part of your gift, it's maybe allies of yours, right? Whether it's astrology or Reiki or stones and crystals or oils or, all of those allies, right? To learn more about how to connect with them and how to deepen your knowledge of them, right? Um, yeah, and that's a whole nother level of teacher. Yeah. When we first start out, sometimes, oh, Tina's here. Hello, Tina. Good to have you here. You're never too late. Never late. Okay, so Rob is saying, whoops, I got to go back just a little bit. All right, so Julie says, thank you for sharing about how you took those first steps. Beautiful transparency, so important to us. Yeah, I mean, you talk about walking your talk, right? There's no way I could tell that story and say, oh yeah, I knew exactly what I was doing. I had no clue. I'd never been to California before. No, didn't even know anybody from California. And so, and actually, one of the doors she opened to me was to the international world. Yep. Because she was an international teacher and people studied with her from all over the world. And so that was one of the doors that she opened for me. There were many. Rob is saying that was what happened. Oh, okay. That was why I started my group. My energy. No one can put me out of that or tell me my discernment isn't good enough for them. Oh, well, good for you. Really, Rob, good for you. To take that kind of experience and turn it into something positive, right? Yeah. And maybe that's what that is what they were supposed to do, is to teach you how to do that, right? Put you in that position to have to step out there. Because sometimes our teachers on the surface don't feel like they're it's a positive thing, right? I've had some of those. Mm-hmm. With teachers that I thought we were like on the same page, that we clicked. I actually became one of their teachers. Yeah, I did this a couple times. Yeah, and then somewhere along the line, it gets very uncomfortable because we think that they've changed. Now everybody changes, right? Everybody does. And this is me years later looking back at it with 2020. When you're in it, you're not that focused. All you know is that you've been hurt and you're just trying to get through it, but the hindsight, the 2020, is that even spiritual teachers shift and change. They have to. That is the nature of energy. Energy is constantly flowing and constantly changing. And so if your spiritual teacher isn't growing, isn't expanding, isn't changing, then even that's a red flag. Okay. And there comes a time when we outgrow our teachers. It's inevitable that we outgrow our teacher. The two-legged teachers, the two-legged spiritual teachers we outgrow, and we're meant to outgrow them. I had a teacher who once said that as a teacher, that you should be encouraging your students to surpass you, is to go beyond you, and to cheer for them, celebrate in their success as they surpass you. That is a compliment to your ability to teach, right? And I thought, oh, that is really good. I like that. I do. But they never said anything about how uncomfortable it is and how that can actually turn out to be more of a confrontation, right? And so you kind of backpedal a bit and you think, well, wait a minute. wait a minute, this is, so when you outgrow a teacher, my suggestion is to find a way to celebrate that, right? Rather than having a contentious confrontation, is to realize that I just outgrew my teacher. Yay! That is a huge yay. And to celebrate it and include them in the celebration, right? Rather than casting stones, right? I learned that. At one point, oh my goodness, one of our teachers talk about litigations, and people were trying to sue her because she changed the protocols and the how we could even retain our accreditation. And yeah, it was not a pretty sight. Was not pretty. But we also learned a lot from that too. Yeah. So yes, we can outgrow our teachers. So having the ability to select your two-legged spiritual teacher or your two-legged spiritual mentor. Now, what's the difference between the two? What's the difference between a spiritual teacher and a spiritual mentor? It's a good question. Julie's saying, I believe that if someone can't tell me how they do their own work, I'm going to walk the other way, really run. Yeah. Well, and that is something that I'm glad you're sharing these things, because each one of us will take it just a slightly different, because we're unique, right? But it gives us a heads up. It kind of, oh yeah, that's a good thing to ask, It's a good thing to witness, to watch how they do their work, right? Yeah. And so it's one of those, is it a test? In some ways it is. What it is that what you're sensing and feeling is, and watching, looking at, is if they're walking their talk, right? If they're walking their talk. Rob says, people trying to hide what they don't know to begin with. Yes. That is so true. Yeah. And all levels, not just, those that might just be starting out being a spiritual teacher, but also those that have been around the block a few times. There's been times when, what was his name? He went to prison too for a couple of years. It's the guy that out in Arizona, Ray something. He had taken aspects of the sweat lodge and tried to teach it and incorporate it into his weekend thing that he charged $10,000 for. And people ended up dying in his sweat lodge, and so he took it out of context, and yet he made people believe that he knew what he was doing, and he didn't. Yeah. It's a good point, Rob. Good point. Tina's saying divine intervention is what I started out with. Well, yeah, definitely. Certainly, my very first teacher, Spirit, was leading that the entire way. That's how I even got the book. I didn't even go into the store to get that particular book. I went into the store to get a book on, I think it was Feng Shui and Color, if I remember right. And the other book kept coming out with the one I was trying to get, to the point where it literally fell off the shelf and hit me in the foot. It's like, so I picked it up and I was going to put it back. When I turned it over, it was this really pretty blue cover with a silvery white eagle plume feather on the cover. And that's what caught my attention. And so I took a closer look at the book. There you have it. My spiritual team was really, really trying hard to get me to notice that book, to the point where they literally, threw it out at me. Julie saying, why do you think it's so painful when we realize we've outgrown a teacher or that we no longer mesh? Well, I think it depends on how it comes around, because in some ways, I think that it's a part of our a healing aspect of ourselves. You know, um, it's a chance to maybe to experience. So maybe as a young adult, maybe we didn't get a chance to really leave the nest in a really good way, right? And so this is another chance to experience that, to have a more positive experience with it. Or perhaps the opposite is true. Perhaps it's knowing when it's time to leave, knowing when it's time to be able to fly on your own, when it's time to take off the training wheels. And so I think that some of the emotion is trepidation, some fear. If I don't have them, who am I? Yeah. And it depends on also on how they take and express their true feelings about you outgrowing them. Are they truly celebrating for you? Or is there competition involved? Right? Yeah. And so I think some of that, I think, Julie, is that the painful part is how we wrap it up, right? How it ends. And one of the things that Denise Lynn taught me about ceremony, when you're creating a ceremony, right, from scratch, is that how you begin will be how you end. And so having a really heartfelt beginning will lead you to a very deep and heartfelt ending. Yeah. And I think that's true with just about everything, So that's one of the things that she taught me. Rob is saying the barrel. Oh, well, I can't pronounce that. Certainly did. They produced Leonard Euler. Okay, music, right? I don't know. You got to tell me more. All right, Rob is saying one teaches, one mentors. Okay, good. Thank you. Yes. Um, and that's the reason why I asked the question, right? The difference between a teacher and a mentor. A teacher is one who trains and imparts knowledge. A mentor is more of a coach who is an accountability partner for a person's own goals, I think. I think you're on the right track with that, Julie. I do. And the reason why Reginald Ray, I know. I'm wondering if Tina's going to remember. Watch, it'll come to me at 2:00 in the morning. I know Ray's in there. I'll get it. I don't think it's Reginald though. Yeah, it was dangerous. It was very dangerous. And he got sued by a lot of people. And he spent 2 years in prison. And as a part of his, when he got out, is that he could not teach those classes anymore. But from what I understand, and I don't know if this is true, is that he is doing some teaching, but it's not out there in the public. He's not promoting anything. It's pretty much, like a secret society kind of thing. Yeah. Tina's saying, I paid attention to spirit, where spirit led me to learn and heal, not a physical human, but paying attention to people is a good teaching. Yeah. And that was my first teacher, which would have been my own grandfather, my Misho, was my first. My mom was actually my first teacher. My grandfather, my Misho, was my second teacher. I was talking about my first non-family teacher, and the reason why, Tina, that I think that this is an important conversation is because number one is that a lot of people are searching for their spiritual teachers, right? to help them on their way. Number two is that I teach, and I have a company that provides classes for students. And so I think that this is a good conversation to have so that I understand my community much better. And number two is that we're open about how to select a teacher and how to deselect a teacher. You know, how to say, okay, thank you very much, but no, thank you, I'm done. And to be able to do in a good way, right? Because it doesn't have to be contentious. I don't think at all. I don't know what that is. What is that? Some sort of symbol, huh? Mathematics. Oh, it's a compass. Was that a compass? Could have been. Could have been. I'd sentenced him to his own swear lodge. Okay. I'd give him a few swears. Yeah, a lot of people did. That was supposed to be sweat, not swear. Yeah, I kind of figured that. Although the swear also fits, I think. Okay, so I think Julie, you were right on track with the teacher mentor thing. Okay, so for me, a teacher is really sharing their wisdom and their experience with you. And a lot of people will say, why are they charging money for a spiritual class? You know, and there's some legitimacy to that, I think, because in my world we're not purchasing spirit. What we're purchasing is the teacher, the two-legged's time and effort, and it's an energy exchange, right? It's an energy exchange, and it should be a balanced energy exchange. With that said, I don't think that classes should be thousands of dollars. I don't. So, and a mentor to me is somebody who that you can get really close with. A spiritual teacher usually has hundreds, if not thousands, of people studying with them. And so it's really kind of hard to get into a personal relationship, a personal call you up and have lunch kind of thing. That doesn't work. It doesn't happen usually. They usually have a very close inner circle, that they only have time for, right? A mentor, I think, is somebody who is much closer than that. They're more accessible, and they're almost like a two-legged guide in a way, like a spirit guide, but only a two-legged. And so that you can get them a little bit closer to them, and share probably more personal things than you would with a spiritual teacher in a way that is meaningful. Now, I've been in classes where there's been hundreds, 200 to 300 people in a class, 500 people in a class. I don't share my personal stuff in front of 200 or 300 people. Not generally, anyway. Not as a student. Yeah, but with a mentor, I think that you're able to do that. I think that mentors are actually hands-on. That they'll actually be there with you when you're going through the muck, right? And they'll be with you when you're celebrating the achievement, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, I have to say that I think a spiritual teacher, a mentor, if I had to choose between the two to say, this is what I do, I think I'm much closer to a spiritual mentor these days than I am to a spiritual teacher. Why? Is because I don't teach it nearly half as much as I used to for family reasons, right? But I do make time. I do make time for, I have 3 people right now. I can't do more than 3, only because of time constraints. Then I'm more of a coach than I am a spiritual teacher. Yeah. Okay, and I'm looking at the time. I want to cover one more thing for sure. That was me fighting this damn iOS keyboard. Yeah, and it is about the energy exchange. It should be a balanced one, right? Although I have to say that as a spiritual teacher, many times I would do bartering because I thought I could feel that the person who wanted to be in the class really was following their spiritual guidance, right? But they couldn't get the money pulled together, and so it's like I had one person was a trained chef, right, raising her family, and so extra money was kind of far and few between sometimes, and so I ended up with frozen meals for like a week and a half. She was cooking for her family anyway, and so she ended up freezing food, and that was part of our energy exchange. It worked for her, worked for me. I didn't have to cook for almost a week. So now here is something when we're selecting our spiritual teacher, and this is something that I totally agree with Tina about, is that you really do have to follow your spiritual guidance. Okay? Because chances are your spiritual team is trying to help you out and putting people and resources in your path, right? And if your spiritual team has put that teacher in your path, then you still have the free will, the choice to make. If you decide not to choose that particular teacher, your team will bring you another teacher in, and to follow your instinct, your intuition when it comes to that. Now I know when you're first starting out, you really don't trust your intuition. And sometimes even when you've been down the path quite a ways, around the block a few times, and you've had situations in your life come up where the cosmic 2x4 times, the times when you've been brought to your knees, the dark night of the soul stuff. Sometimes you go through a period of time questioning again how to believe your intuition, how to trust yourself. And so with that, you get tools. You can douse on it. You can use kinesiology on it. You can talk to friends and family about it, help you kind of sort things through, talk it out. But the end result is your choice. And there is an old axiom, is that when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right? There's truth to that. There's truth to that. All right. So the one thing that I want to make sure that we cover tonight is we're talking about spiritual teachers as a two-leg, right? Human. But we also have spiritual teachers who are on our spiritual team, our spiritual committee, our spiritual family, whatever you name those in spirit that are here to help you. You have spiritual teachers on your team. Yeah, you do. More than one. And many times these spiritual teachers will be with you until you've outgrown them. And then it's a big yay. They're the ones that's going to celebrate with you when you've outgrown them. And then they move on and a new teacher comes in to take you to that next plane, that next dimension of learning, of remembering. So with spirit, in spirit, you could have more than just a couple of teachers. Most certainly, you will have teachers that are meant to help you with your gifts, to help you learn how to master them, how to remember how to master them. Yeah. And they'll bring you information to stretch you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those spiritual teachers. Sometimes they'll appear in your dreams. Has anybody ever dreamt of a spiritual teacher? In spirit teacher that shows up in one of your dreams? Yeah. Julie is saying, I knew instantly when I first saw the Facebook promotion about the artist workshop, it was an energetic volcano that I had to take the class. With that urgency, it's been a life changer. So much has emerged within me because of that class, keeps emerging. Well, that's great. That's huge. And yay for you for listening to your intuition and to your team who put that in your path and said, this one, Julie, look at this one. And you did. Yeah. And and Stephanie, so Tina's saying, yes, she did dream about her spiritual teachers. And Stephanie also has multiple times. Yes. And Tina's saying, an old man. Yeah. Well, when they're in spirit, they come to us in a form or in a way that we will recognize and feel comfortable with, right? Because they're in spirit. They're pure energy. They're pure energy. So if they come into your dreams or even into your meditations, right? And they appear to you in a physical form, in a human form, they're trying to make you comfortable. And so that you relax and you're ready to move into whatever it is that they're teaching you, right? Or showing you. And some people will see them come in as pure light or colored light or music. That's how they know that they're there, right? Some of us get it in numbers. Mine right now happens to be 333. And so, yeah. So they certainly can come in. How you will feel comfortable with them, feel confident with them, right? Yeah. So there must be something about an elder man for you, Tina, that would have you feel comfortable around them. And so Sabrina's saying, hello, by the way, was following a teacher. Now the cost is $50 a month, $600 a year. I just can't do it. Yeah. And sometimes Sabrina, when it comes to that point, and really it is your personal choice. It's your decision to make, right? That if you feel like this is something that only this teacher can provide for you, then okay. But if it is your intuition, that when you go to it and you feel kind of twisted up about it, you get a stomach ache when you think about it, you get a headache when you think about it, maybe it's just time for you. Maybe you've either outgrown them, or it's just time to move to a different direction. Maybe you've just gotten everything you possibly can get from this particular teacher, and which is good. It's a good thing. And sometimes, we're Us humans, us two-legged, sometimes we get stuck in a rut. And just because we've done something the same way and for the same reason, we think that that's a good thing. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's time. It's time to move on. I've had spirit do things like when I was supposed to leave a certain job. That my telephone line got eaten by a mouse, and I didn't have a phone. Another time, only my cable to my computer from the mainframe was pulled out. Only my monitor one time had the blue screen of death, and it's not supposed to come back after that, but it did. And so I kept getting pushed and told and shown. And the reason why I stayed is because I had promised my husband I was not going to leave that job until later in the summer. But the time was up. And in order for me to continue my soul growth, I needed to move on. So, Sabrina, what my suggestion would be to you is to sit in meditation with it and ask your spiritual team, okay, this is my feeling about this. Can you please show me some clarity around this? I need some help with it, right? And sit with it and listen. Chances are, you'll get some validation for what you're already feeling, right? Yeah, that's $600. That's a lot of money. Christine says, yes, my mom and brother from the other side. Absolutely. I can just see those jazz hands. And Julie is saying, not in dream time, but in my meditation time. He still pops in for new lessons. Yogi Baba Kabatina. I like his name. Tina says, female and male with long hair dress the old way. You'll never get to see their faces, though. Yeah, chances are. If they're coming to you in the old way, no, you won't. I had one teacher, this is a long time ago in a dream. I don't know. It was almost like we were in a spaceship. And he was there was this tabletop that lit up from underneath, and he was pointing things out to me. But this man was so good looking, and he didn't come to me in the old way. He didn't, not that time. But I recognized his energy in a dream I had like years ago when he did come to me in the old way. And I've had them come to me where the old woman is what she's called. Sits with her back to me, and sometimes I get to see her profile, but she's got really long hair. It's kind of it's gray, but it's silver gray, and yeah. But I never get to see her face. I haven't thought about that in a while. Thank you, Tina, for that good memory that popped in for me. Julia said, a tiny Indian man from India with a mischievous humor and sharp tongue teaches me about number energy, especially. Well, see, you guys have a lot of teachers there just helping you. Sabrina saying, yes, you are right. Yeah. Get that validation going. You know exactly what you need to do, Sabrina. It's having the courage to do it, right? Take that step. Tina says, I give freely to help the people as best I can from my experience. Yeah, that's good. It's good. Pat said, I have a new angel on board. Delno, his color is magenta. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah. I've had them come in with these blue, shiny, iridescent blue cloaks, very, very tall. So definitely star beams, right? Star beams coming in. Julie says, I've been getting flashes that my job is retarding my spiritual learning and growth. Yeah, that, when I was talking about my blue screen of death and stuff like that, is exactly. I needed to move on and have the courage to start my own business and to do that. I started out doing feng shui and space clearing. Mm-hmm. The old way. I like that. Yeah. Julie says, I've had a teacher come to me in a dream. It's a collection of teachers named Mariah. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, Mariah. Yeah. I keep hearing the word BAND, band. It's like a wave band or a sound band or something, right? They're in the same wavelength kind of thing. Yeah. Very cool. Well, you guys, this was I loved the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing as much as you did and offering, your thoughts and your feelings about spiritual teachers and mentors and our teachers who are in spirit. Um, I can tell you one thing, and I was told this years and years and years ago. It was one of those times I was falling in between awake and asleep, and Spirit was telling me that we have three major high teachers that are with us for this lifetime. That we all have three, and that we can ask them to come to us to show us who they are, and they will. They will. All in that divine timing, but they will. If we ask them, they will show us who they are. And that's something that you might want to keep to yourself. You don't have to share everything. But if you do ask, is to keep it to yourself. And yeah, because it's like it's part of that agreement, right? When we came into this existence, and they're here to kind of orchestrate our curriculum and to make sure that we have the optimum available to us so that we remember and we learn. Um, yeah. Okay. All right. And Tina's saying another was a very tall man. Wow. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. We're at the top of the hour, and I so enjoyed our evening together tonight. What a great conversation. And so, if you are selecting your first spiritual teacher, um, I say blessings to you. You will find and know that is your teacher that you are meant to be with for a time, for a time. And when it's time, when you've outgrown them and it's time to move on, my suggestion to you is to celebrate it and to celebrate it with your teacher and thank them and be grateful to Spirit for bringing them to you because they're going to bring in your next teacher. And with that, I hope someday we get to meet and you can study with one of our teachers at Star Nations. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah. Okay. So enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening. And I'm just going to say that if any of this resonated with you, embrace it and see where it leads you. Okay. All right. So Bama Mina, that's Potawatomi for until we see each other again. Love you guys.